Hey kids, so you want to learn how to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Whether you are invited by a friend of yours to run a game or it's just something you want to learn, either way, this is a quick tutorial for people that want to learn. So what is Dungeons & Dragons? Dungeons & Dragons is an opportunity to tell a story with your friends and or family, depending on who's in your party, and using dice to figure out the outcome of the actions that you think are most appropriate for your character in the setting. So, what are the roles in a game of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? The GM. Now, a DM or a GM, Dungeon Master or Game Master, is essentially the narrator of this world that you're going to be playing in. They are going to be the ones setting the scene in the world so that you know what is surrounding you in your environment, so that you can go into it fully informed or as educated as they want you to be before you can make your first decision as a player in the scene. PCs. Now, the PCs or player characters are equally important to the person creating the world, because without someone to play in it, there's no reason to have it. Now, as a PC, your goal is to have fun. I would suggest having a conversation with your DM or GM regarding whether they're going for a more serious, methodical campaign, or if it's just balls to the wall craziness, because then everyone will have a good time as long as everyone is going into it expecting the same thing. How do you keep track of your characters? Character sheets. So what is a character sheet? A character sheet is your character incarnate. It'll typically look something like this, and it looks like a lot, but I'll break it down. The first thing that you need to know, at the top of your character sheet, you would put your character's name on the top left. Next to that is class and level, so whether that's rogue, fighter, barbarian, sorcerer, or anything along those lines, you would put that on top of that with the number that describes how many levels there are. Next to that, to the right, is the background. Now, the background is an optional thing. It basically is a little piece that might give you a little bit of an advantage. Might be something like noble, beggar, pirate, or knight, which might give you extra proficiencies or money, but it's not really something that you need to get going on the game. Now, next to that is, of course, player name, which you can use to keep track of which character sheet is yours if you're not going to be finished with that character sheet that session. So you can just stack them with other character sheets and get back to yours. Now, starting with the bottom row, we get to race. Race is whether you're elven, dwarvish, goblin, or anything along those lines. And those have their own bonuses as well. I would say if you're really getting into this, I would suggest getting the player's handbook, because it really goes into depth about this. And if not, you can really just Google it, and there's going to be a big page describing all of the bonuses of the race you're looking into. Next to that, we get to alignment. Now, alignment in 5th edition is much more suggestive than absolute. In previous versions of the game, you would really adhere to that depending on like what situations rose up. So the 3 archetypes going in each direction are lawful, neutral, chaotic, and good, neutral, evil in a 3x3 grid. That grid basically describing how your character acts and helps you flesh out their personality a little bit more. Somebody that's lawful evil might apply their own code of conduct to their decisions. Somebody that's chaotic evil might do something bad just because it's fun to them. Somebody that's lawful good might adhere more to a governmental sort of code of conduct. Somebody that's chaotic good might do something more rash and irresponsible for the sake of the betterment of others. Neutral, of course, being diplomatic and not really fun to roleplay because I guess I'll do this, but it doesn't really matter. I don't feel strongly in either direction. There's not a lot of growth there that can happen. Unless, of course, you feel like being the straight man to someone else's craziness and therefore making their stuff funnier. That's totally fine. Do whatever you want. Moving to those big boxes on the left and what they mean. These are your character's attributes, and they go as follows: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These are what you are going to be using as reference for when you are making checks. The bigger numbers are not what you use as reference for the checks. They are what you use as reference for the modifiers, which is what you use when you're making a check. Now, what is a check? A check is a request for you to roll a d20, add whatever bonus your character might have, and then to give the sum of those numbers to your DM for them to tell you how successful you are in your endeavor. If somebody asks you to make a strength check, you would roll the d20 and you would add whatever smaller number on that square is to your check. Moving on to the right of that, those two smaller boxes, saving throws and skills. The top box being saving throws. The main thing to keep track of here is whether you have proficiency in the saving throw or not. If you do have proficiency in it, then you darken the little circle next to it and add whatever your proficiency bonus is to your saving throw. Otherwise, you are just putting down the same modifier that's in the big boxes to the left. Underneath that is all of the attributes associated with said 6 skills that are going to be used for every other check in the game. Same thing here, you are just putting your modifiers from the left into that box, and if you have proficiency, darken the circle and add whatever that proficiency bonus is. Let's go into what playing D&D looks like. The biggest mechanic that is used throughout the game to decide the outcome of a decision are dice. The D4. The D4 can be used as an attack for spells like Magic Missile, as a bonus or a hindrance for things like Vicious Mockery or Guidance, or as damage depending on what you're attacking with. The D6, it's a standard die, what you'd use in something like Monopoly. The D6 is also used for damage, is also useful as Bardic Inspiration if you're starting out as a bard. Bardic Inspiration being something you can give to someone to add to their D20 roll on particular rolls. The D8. The D8 is often used for damage. The D10. The D10 is often used for the same thing. Something else that a D10 can be used with is there's one that looks like this with the 2 digits, and I don't have one right now, but there's another one that has 1 digit, and you would roll both of those, and it would be called a percentile die because it would represent 100 numbers because you're rolling 2 D10s. That can be used to decide how much treasure you find in a chest, how much income you're making, and an array of other things to the discretion of your DM. A D12. The D12 is often used for damage rolling. So if you roll to attack and you hit, your weapon that you're using or your spell that you're using is going to specify how much damage you're going to be doing. If it says D12, you would be rolling this one and then adding whatever bonuses that it specifies on the sheet. And the most important and most commonly used die in the game, the D20. When you go into a room and you say, I want to look around and see what I can find, you might be asked to roll something called a perception check or an investigation check. So you might be asked to roll an investigation check. You roll the die, you take the outcome, and you say 17, what do I add to investigation? The other thing that a d20 is used for is for rolling for attacks. They say, okay, roll to attack. You go to whatever you're attacking with, roll this, and add your attack bonus as opposed to your check bonus. The last thing you can use your d20 on is a saving throw. Now, a saving throw is a snap decision as a result of something happening that's out of your control. Whether that's the rug is being literally pulled out from under you, you are being pushed somewhere, somebody is trying to cast a spell on you, you're going to be asked to roll a particular saving throw. That saving throw can be of any of your 6 original stats.